thank you so much for being with us today and talking about a very pertinent issue related to ecological degradation and, of course, the economy at large. So, my first question to you is why and how should ecology be centered as a foundational element of economic development, particularly in the Eastern Himalayan region, because we are nature capital rich, but in terms of GDP, the region seems to be lagging behind in comparison to its neighboring countries or states. So, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for making me a part of this, which I believe is a very rich discussion. I think it's a very topical discussion and it's on top of everybody's mind. What goes in my mind when you talk about, the subject matters which this foundation talks so passionately about rural futures, about building local natural capital, about the resilience of forest-rich communities, livelihoods in that restore natural capital. But if you were to step back from all of this, this move from an extractive economy to a regenerative economy is actually a global issue today. It is as relevant for India, even more so for some parts of India, and clearly Eastern Himalaya is a part of that. The region which we love is a part of that. So anything which we do cannot be seen in isolation. And in my simple way of looking, there is a framework which we need to always keep in mind, which helps looking at our issues in Eastern Himalaya in context of where we stand today. And to me, we are reaching a tipping point where we, unless we talk about the larger picture and see that picture with some clarity, we will not be able to zoom into the pixel, which is the Eastern Himalayan region. And therefore, the ongoing economic development, the consequent improvement in quality of life of all of us, we have seen it from the times of industrial revolution. It will continue. And by any stretch of imagination, I do not come from a point of view of turning back the clock. I do believe that people should be benefiting from the advances in technology, medicines, economy, and the like. But the definition of businesses going forward, definition of the development going forward would be very different from what we have seen so far. And to me, that's the discussion we need to be having, because that is what will impact Eastern Himalayan region. That is what will impact the country. If I dare say, that's probably the most burning issue the planet has today. So I'll pause there, and then, depending on which direction we want to take, go a little
Right.
bit.
Absolutely, sir. I completely agree with you. And on that note of changing definitions and paradigms when it comes to businesses, or whether it is an enterprise, or whether it is conservation amalgamated together, I think the second question comes in really well in terms of the big risks and challenges that businesses are facing now in terms of ecological degradation, which is accelerating in India today. How do we sort of build back better to overcome these challenges, sir?
Very clearly, if you and a pertinent question, because it goes back to the heart of the economic model which we have practiced for few generations now, and if truth be told, it has given results. We have seen continuous improvement in the quality of our lives over the last from the times of industrial revolution, as I said. But the tipping point now is very clear. And if I look ahead, clearly what has made us successful so far will not work for the model in years to come. Put in very simple terms, what I described so far, we have more followed a 3G model of growth. Growth which is consistent, growth which is competitive, and growth which is profitable. These have been the three pillars on which our traditional economic models have been set. And there was a point of view that if you do these three things well, the world will take care of itself. And so far, maybe it was. But I think the fourth dimension is getting added onto this with clarity, with absolute integrity with the complete business model, which to me is the responsible element. So the businesses have, of course, has got to follow the three C's, which the growth description which I gave, but it also has to be responsible. So of course, it has got to be profitable, it has got to be consistent, it has got to be competitive, and it has got to be responsible. And what are the elements of responsibility? It is in the area of the impact we have on this planet, the impact we have in this total extractive economy, which I talked a few minutes ago. That the time for that is gone, and you can see it in so many ways. If you see some of the mega trends today, you see the way populations are increasing. What has taken us, what used to take the first couple of billions were reached over a period of decades, and now we are looking at going from where we are to 10 billion over the next few years. So the acceleration of population, the acceleration of mobility, the acceleration of technology, the acceleration, the capital, and all are moving in an increasingly faster manner, which also means that the trust in large businesses, the trust in governments, the trust in many of the institutions which have served us well, that is eroding. And that is eroding because the consumers and the generations ahead see the current model is not sustainable.
Right.
And depending on where you are sitting and what you are looking at, people will talk to you about the current model requires almost 2 to 3 planets equivalent of resources if we have to, and we don't have, clearly, we don't have that luxury. Therefore, this model needs a change, and this model needs to look at responsible growth almost as an integral part.
Right.
Now, I have spent most of my time in a business which, and I was fortunate enough to spend my time in a business which has seen this maybe a little ahead of time, maybe a little deeper than others, because in the coming years, it is absolutely certain that businesses which will survive, businesses which will grow, will need to take this fourth dimension far more seriously,
Mhm.
and make sure that it is integral to their business model and not another good thing to do. It's not CSR, it's not philanthropy. There is a very rich reasons. There is a clear, sound business case for this. We may not see it today, but if you take a slightly longer and evolved view, we will find that the only way we will be able to grow when we take this element of responsibility in our framework. And if truth be told, the governments get it, the global leaders get it, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on talking about how global leaders have tried to talk about the 17 or the SDGs. But if you see the basic thought behind the SDGs, thought behind what we'll do with people, what we'll do with planet, and what we'll do with prosperity, because these are the 3 tenets on which these are based. They address all of this, and they address it well. And why do I say our government gets it? If you just look back on some of the pronouncements which the government has made so far, things like Samagra Bharat, the inclusive and entrepreneurial India, things like Safal Bharat, things like Sampurna Bharat. These are all descriptions of basically looking at inclusive growth, looking at a 360-degree model, looking at prosperous and vibrant India, and so on. And our Eastern Himalayan region is an integral part of this. And we have to make sure that it doesn't become a kind of citadel in itself. It doesn't get siloed into something which is very Eastern Himalayas. Yeah, the solution for Eastern Himalayas is very unique to the region.
Right.
But the platforms are global. The platforms are absolutely universal. So organizations get it, the fund managers today get it, the banking industries get it, but more importantly, the consumers get it. And that will be the strongest driver for change. When our younger generations and the consumer get it, the things begin to change very frequently. So I'll take a pause there and reflect on what I've said. And if something else comes to your mind, let me pick that up.
Absolutely, sir. Um, we have one more question related to your esteemed organization. In terms of the ethos of sustainability, you've clearly mentioned, so that it's very important that there has to be a paradigm shift in the fourth element of being responsible in terms of businesses, in how we engage with people, planet, and prosperity. So, sir, Hindustan Unilever's ethos of sustainability is extremely robust, and we would like to know some of the learnings that the company has sort of imbibed and, of course, imparted, and the workings of it, sir.
Sure. No, that it's first of all, I just want to, a simple health warning that I used to work for Unilever, which is a fantastic company. I worked for a very long time with Unilever, and I have retired about a year ago,
Okay.
after being on the board of the Indian company for almost a decade.
Mhm.
So what I speak, I have learned in the school of Unilever, if there was one, and there is one. I have learned there, but I speak as Pradeep Banerjee and not as a spokesman of Unilever.
Right.
But I think what I speak about is almost a universal truth. It is in the public domain, so there is uh, nothing confidential which I am sharing. If you were to just step back, what Unilever has done, I think, is a pretty evolved model, and they became public with it
Mhm.
in early 2010 or in 2010, in the when the decade started, and they made a very simple decision, and which was based on a firm belief in the 4G model of growth, which I talked about getting responsibility integral to the business model and not as something additional things which have to be done. No, it is central to the business model. And what it basically says is we will grow. We have absolutely no uh, apology to make there, because once we have a business, only then we can have impact. If we do not have a viable business, we will not have any impact. So we will grow. We will double our, let's say, whatever measure turnover, we double our size, double our, im- but we will do so in a manner which has got absolutely no impact on the planet. In
Mhm.
other words, we will make sure that whether the amount of uh, energy we consume, the amount of resources we take, the amount of uh, uh, waste we leave behind, there will be no net addition to the environmental load of the planet because of what we do.
Right.
So decoupling the growth from the impact of the planet was a fundamental decision. And then it went a step ahead because it took a holistic view of the sustainability, and that is so true when you look at the Eastern Himalayan region today. That we'll not only do this, but we'll also increase our social impact.
Right.
So we will decouple the impact on the planet and create positive social impact. And it chose to do so through creating sustainable growth through all the brands it has got. And every brand developed what it called a purpose.
Mhm.
And another articulation of this deep company belief is very simple, that brands with purpose grow, uh, people with purpose thrive at a personal level, doesn't matter where you are, and organizations with purpose actually sustain over a longer period of time. So this is the fundamental thinking. So what it did actually is quite interesting. It took three fundamental areas. The first area was in the area of health and hygiene. In health and hygiene, they set themselves a big goal uh, of reaching so many people, improving nutrition, and so on. And these are all metricized. And if you go to the website and they publish an annual report, you can see the progress they have made. On some, they are ahead of the targets. On some, they are little behind the targets, but they have in transparency published that. The second big goal they took was we will halve the environmental footprint of what we have today. In other words, when we double, our environmental footprint will not grow with us. So all increase. So we will continue to reduce the impact we have on the planet, and all the growth will come out of virtually having no more impact. So things like greenhouse gases, things like the water which we consume, things like waste and packaging, the way we source our raw materials and packaging materials, including anything which is agri-based, we will do. And the third was we will do anything and everything which we can to improve the livelihoods of people who work with us, their quality of life. One thing is to look at health and hygiene. The other one is to make sure that they're able to improve their livelihoods. So we'll look at both houses very clearly. So impact on people, impact on planet, and impact on health and hygiene. So these were the three, because these were consistent with what the business of Unilever is, and there are sub goals behind each one of this. And it became very clear. And let me just pick one example of this. We source large amounts of material which is based on agricultural produce. We
Mhm.
have paper and paper products. We have got tea, we have got cocoa, we have got palm, we have got soya, all sorts of. And we said we will have a code. We will have a code of practices, and we'll go to those vendors and those plantations and those areas and those factories which follow that code, because we are large, but we are also humble enough to know that we alone cannot do everything. We need to do it with our partners like in the civil society, with NGOs, with like-minded people. And we say even with our competition, we are more than happy to work, because as long as it is going to impact the ecosystem where we work, and each one of us has to mind the ecosystem which we impact. And if all of us begin to take this enlightened point of view, the world will be a much better place. That was the kind of leadership which went behind this. So you would be surprised to know, for example, now we've got a code for where we will buy tea from. We've got a code from where we'll buy palm from. In fact, we were at the forefront of giving birth to the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm, which is RSPO. And we are active kind of participants in that. So industry standards on what sustainability should mean. What does it mean for the smallholder farmers there? And using all sorts of technology to make sure that the benefit reach those people of companies like Unilever buying palm and palm derivatives. Those kind of infrastructure was put in place. And we have been steadily uh, increasing the share of our total procurement from where we were 10 years ago to now, increasingly from almost 100% sustainable sources.
Mhm.
Now, in some areas, we have been able to exceed, and some areas we have not been able to exceed, and we will therefore continue to work. It
Mm.
doesn't really matter whether we reach 90% or 100% or 95%. What matters is, have you made a difference? Have you got the industry standards? Have large number of people got impacted? And the fact is, they have got impacted. And this is a never-ending journey. It will continue. And I'm absolutely convinced in years to come, this thinking would be not with Unilever, but with a large number of people. Because if you see the way the large businesses are growing now, when I look at large transnational corporations, large multinational, large governments, they're talking the same language. When I see the way the Paris Accord, with all its trials and tribulations, the way it is moving, that we will not let 1.5 degrees come in,
Right.
and we'll do it ahead of time. It all comes from a very simple, enlightened self-interest that, look, we can keep on doing what we are doing, but if we go beyond a certain warming level, let's say beyond the
Mhm.
2 degrees, life would be very different for us, certainly, but
Mhm.
more importantly for our children and grandchildren. So, this thing is really gaining momentum. If you see the zero neutrality principles, which is coming into Europe now, it'll lead to far reaching changes. If you see the way energy transition is beginning to happen, people are reshaping their business model dramatically, and large companies, not small companies. And I believe they're all these changes are for good. For example, the look for renewable changes, the look for natural gas as fuel versus some of the fossil fuel, other fuels which we have. Looking at large areas of energy storage, looking at large areas of carbon sequestering,
Mhm.
where Eastern Himalaya has got a huge role to play. So all these are becoming currency of today, and clearly the three tenets of economic principles which we have gone by, we are way beyond that, and people are beginning to take a full 360-degree look. The circularity principles are now getting into our language, and I do believe we will leave this place a better place than what we inherited. That's the belief. Now let's go and make it happen.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you've summed up everything really well in terms of business frameworks, conservation, and your own perspectives for that matter, sir. Thank you very much.
A very warm welcome to you, Vivek Saxena ji, the country head of the glorious IUCN, who have been in the business of actually environmental protection and conservation for close to a century across more than 160 countries, in partnership with over 400 members and having a base of 1,700 plus experts. Just to quote from your vision of IUCN, sir, the vision is to create a just world that values and conserves nature. And taking it further to your mission statement, it is all about equitable asset sharing while being ecologically sustainable and integrating people, ecology, and economy. So, having set the context with your vision and mission and the kind of work that IUCN has been doing, I've got primarily three asks from you. One is how and why should ecology now become the center stage of ecology and economy. How can we lay the foundation for future economic development with ecology being part of the center stage? Two is, to do this, what are the frameworks required for new development policies? And what are the actions, therefore? And how can we take our learnings from the past follies, if I may say so? And three, the most important one, because of your spread, geographical spread, and spread in the mind space of experts, what is IUCN's plans for global wilding and creating an economic model through natural assets? And again, to repeat, integrating people, ecology, and economy. Over to you, Saxena Saab, and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Mr. Praveen and everyone. First of all, let me congratulate you for organizing the 8th Eastern Himalayan Nature Economics Forum during most challenging times of COVID, and the thematic area which is very, very relevant, that ecology is economy. As you rightly pointed, that the today during the COVID crisis, and when we are looking towards at the same time, the entire economic activities, they have come under threat, and the entire world is at crossroads, and our all further future development pathways also need to be redefined in a manner so that we have to take care of the ecology or nature also. So the question is that why and how ecology should be at the center stage and is at the foundation of economic development. If we see that the very basis of the foundation of the economic development and what we describe today our growth is, in terms of how our entire economic development process is related to the use of the natural resources. And resources are not infinite, and resources have to be used in such a manner we don't degrade the nature, and these resources are available for each and every generation. And that is what, when you describe the sustainable development or sustainable development goals, and in the process of the economic development, somehow we have given the ecological or the nature conservation aspect backstage somewhere, and we okay, that only pursuit is in terms of the economic growth is that the more and more we develop more consumer items, the more vehicles, without caring that the type of emissions, the type of pollution we generate, with through which we see the today's problems of the air pollution, or you could say that degradation of our land resources, the soil health, the cleaner sources of the waters, the pollution in the rivers, plastic pollution, marine life threat, and all these things somehow, because of this, it has caused very much threat to the very process of the concept of the economic development, because presently we conceive that we as a human beings or Homo sapiens are the most superior species, and we have all the right to use any species or their habitat to degrade their habitats and disturbing this equilibrium which nature has provided in the pursuit of the economic development. But if you see that on planet Earth, planet Mother Earth, there are millions and millions of species, and every species has a unique role in the ecosystem. And that needs to be recognized. We may be aware of their importance or value, or we may not be aware because our knowledge is also limited. But at the same time, we should have a knowledge that we have to take care of the nature, and we have to take care of the various species, their habitats, and our development should be in the process so that we don't degrade or disturb their habitats, which leads to the extinction of the species. So that's why...
Wonderful, sir. I could just interrupt you here. I mean, the very fact that over 60% of our country's GDP and over 50% of the global GDP is dependent on nature and natural resources is something which is not really being announced, or it is something which is being downgraded because of the current economic and consumerism model that we have. So, IUCN's role, which you have been doing so sterlingly over the last 70 years or more, will have to become that much more proactive going forward now.
Yeah, certainly, as you rightly pointed out with in terms of the statistics, but the statistics which you just mentioned in terms of the contribution of the natural resources in the economic development process, but the in in the pathway of economic development like that, these statistics in which the role or importance of the resources which are at use, that is not given that importance, or you can say that publicity to recognize their importance. That's why now in the present COVID crisis, when we see that even a one small tiny virus can bring everything to a halt, and this present crisis is also somewhere rooted to the disruption of the ecosystems, disruption in the ecology. So that's why, again, we have to relook that ecology should be at the center stage, and it should be at the foundation of the economic development. So that economy is a very, very relevant thematic area, which you are trying to bring it to the focus through your very important this summit, in which I think certainly the message which will be taken up through this summit, and it will be also an eye-opener or learning to all the planners, all the relevant stakeholders, to integrate ecology at the center stage in all the planning process. Now, coming back to your second question, that how can we break from the traditional industrialization and forge a new path for forward-looking environment policy in action? Then learnings, when we say that the ecology should be at the center stage, somehow this should also be reflected into the future pathways related to the environmental policies and action. So that traditional industrialization, where we hardly care about the end use of a product, or when we talk about the circular economy, so whatever we resource you use for a particular consumer item or for a particular industrial product, in the end use we hardly bother that whether after its use, how much or even during its use, how much is causing a pollution in terms of the air pollution, water pollution, and other types of pollution, and at end use, if it is degrading further without taking care of its degradable component, that whether after it is biodegradable or not, or if so, in end use, how we are going to dispose it off so that it is not causing further harm. So these all aspects related to the components of the circular economy, the end use, the sustainable consumption, and all these issues that need to be at the center stage in the forward-looking environmental policies and consequent actions relatively. One of the key lessons, which though we are talking today at the issues pertaining to the, you can say, Himalayan states, but the role which Himalayan states play is very, very important for the people downhill. And because maybe our water resources, the sustainability of our waters, the availability of the drinking water, the management of the Himalayan watersheds, that also has to be integrated into this, our future environmental policies and action. And you see that in Delhi and NCR region, that air pollution has become such a challenging issue that for those 2, 3, 4 months, just at the onset of the winter, and for 3 months, the life becomes so, you can say, miserable, that outside when you see that lot of pollution, and these causes lot of different type of diseases, and at the same time it also impacts the economic activities because of the various regulations. If the pollution level goes high, then we have to give regulation in terms of stopping of certain activities, construction activities. So in totality, we have to look towards the industrialization process, a paradigm shift from the traditional pathways which presently we are following, and integrating the resource conservation aspect in all the industrialization process, And these are the key lessons which we need to learn from the past downturns. Now, your another query was that the IUCN International Union for Conservation of Nature, what are IUCN plans for global rebuilding and land restoration efforts, and how can this be used as a catalyst for a revolution of a new growth which integrates people, ecology, and economy? It's a very relevant, and you see that IUCN International Union for Conservation of Nature, the largest global conservation network having more than 1,300 institutional members, that includes the governments as a state members, civil society organization, specialized institutions, and also more than 15,000 IUCN commission members across 6 IUCN commissions. They play a very important role since the setting up of the IUCN, which came into being just after the World War in 1948, and in its journey of more than 70 years, it has played a very pivotal role in shaping the global conservation agenda based on the needs from decade to decade. Maybe setting up of the global conservation agenda, the coming up of the 3 Rio conventions related to the climate change, biodiversity, and desertification, and the biodiversity conservation, then Aichi biodiversity targets, now post 2020 biodiversity framework, the sustainable development goals and respective targets. Now, again, when we talk of that integration of the ecology or ecology to be brought at the center stage, so IUCN has again emphasized during the launch of the global standard for the nature-based solutions, which have been launched in 2020, only in July this year, that we have to integrate nature-based solution standards in all our programs and policies, so that take care of the nature. So this is one of the key message which IUCN has a plan, especially these standards were to be initially launched during the World Conservation Congress. But sorry, but now with the process of this World Conservation Congress, because could not happen, which was scheduled in France, Marseille, in June, then it was rescheduled in January 2021, but because of the COVID, it has been postponed again. So that is the central stage where IUCN would like to bring all the conservation partners, including through our IUCN Business and Biodiversity Program, through which we sensitize various corporates and business houses to integrate sustainability concerns and biodiversity conservation aspects into their business practices. So these are the IUCN plans in future, also through sensitization, capacity building, advocacy, and building up of the programs to impress upon, so that the IUCN global standards, along with other IUCN conservation tools, maybe the red listing of the species, which based on the categorization of a particular species into particular threat category, it triggers the conservation action for conservation of the species. And also the IUCN other conservation tools, the green listing of protected areas, they are the important IUCN plans in future, which will be taken up during the Conservation Congress, if it is not happening physically, but through the various virtual forums. So that through the IUCN policies, programs, vision, and mission, we are able to integrate all these aspects to integrate the people, ecology, and economy, and emphasizing that ecology should be at the center stage of the economy. And ecology is economy, the very relevant theme of this summit, will certainly be a very great catalyst for all the participants, and the messages learned during the summit will be taken further for integration into the future policies development and further action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saxena Saab. And I'm so happy to note that you brought up that the whole role of corporates and business houses, apart from government, will be an integral part of your advocacy and awareness building campaign. Because at the end of the day, they are driving our economy in whichever form today. And we at Balipara Foundation look forward to our continued partnership with IUCN, and we continue to seek your advice, guidance, and wisdom to try and solve this current issue through bringing in ecology into the center stage of economy. Thank you so much, Saxena Saab. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me and also for organizing this summit on a very, very important theme. And I wish all the best.
We are grateful. We are grateful for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on the subject of ecology is economy. Without going into the damning statistics which raise fundamental questions about the environmental impact of human lifestyles or the potential economic benefits of looking after nature assets, I would like to jump straight into the key levers which, in my opinion, drive changes in mindsets around nature assets. Firstly, environmental and ecological warning signs. Secondly, government regulation. And then corporate stewardship, of course, supported by innovation and technology. And finally, shift in customer behavior. I believe that the largest impact would be from a shift in customers choosing businesses or brands that have environmentally sustainable practices. The two biggest barriers to this are consumer apathy and affordability. We, as businesses, must find a way to address the challenge of perceived affordability of nature-friendly products by finding ways to value long-term ecological impact to offset short-term economic costs, passing the benefits directly to the consumer. Once this is addressed, I do believe that there would be enough societal traction which would alter the entire value creation and recognition process for businesses and bring the focus back on nature capital. Thank you.